I'm Rachel Armstrong, 34, and last Christmas changed my life forever. The text from my sister Stephanie was blunt. Sorry, but there's no room for you and Lily this year. After driving 6 hours through a snowstorm with my 7-year-old daughter to my parents' suburban home in Connecticut, we found ourselves staring at a house full of extended family, including my sister's college roommate's family, who had nowhere else to go. Little did they know, their Christmas rejection would lead to the most satisfying revenge when they had the audacity to demand my help just 3 months later. Before I dive into this family drama, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If you've ever dealt with family betrayal, hit that like button and subscribe to see more stories about standing up for yourself against toxic family members. Trust me, you'll want to stick around to see how karma finally caught up with my entitled sister and parents. Growing up, I never imagined I'd become the family outcast. My sister Stephanie and I were raised in a comfortable middle-class home in suburban Connecticut. Our father, Thomas, was an accountant. Our mother, Catherine, a part-time real estate agent. We weren't rich, but we had everything we needed. I was the responsible older sister who followed rules, got good grades, and tried to make my parents proud. Stephanie was 3 years younger, naturally social and charismatic. After college, I married my high school sweetheart, Mark. Everyone expected us to be together forever, but life had other plans. When Lily was 4, I discovered Mark had been having an affair with his coworker for almost a year. The divorce was messy and painful, especially since Mark fought for full custody, claiming my demanding job made me an unfit mother. He lost, but the battle drained my savings and left emotional scars that took years to heal. Through it all, I rebuilt my life piece by piece. I focused on my career as a real estate attorney, specializing in property disputes and insurance claims. I worked hard to provide stability for Lily, who remained my priority through everything. By the time she turned 7, we had a comfortable routine in our cozy apartment in Boston, about 6 hours from my parents' home. Before my divorce, our family had been close. Christmas at my parents' house was our most treasured tradition. Mom would decorate every inch of the house, and Dad would dress as Santa for the grandkids. Even after the divorce, I made the long drive each year so Lily could experience the magic of family Christmas. It wasn't always easy being the divorced single mom among coupled relatives, but I endured occasional insensitive comments for Lily's sake. Things began to change after Stephanie married Bradley Wilson 5 years ago. Bradley came from money and worked in investment banking. Their wedding was an extravagant affair that my parents couldn't really afford but insisted on paying for anyway. Soon after, they had twin boys, Jackson and Oliver. Suddenly, my parents had the perfect daughter with the perfect family to brag about. The shift happened gradually. First, it was my parents constantly talking about Stephanie and Bradley's achievements during our phone calls. Then it was comparing Lily to her cousins in ways that made me uncomfortable. The twins are already in advanced reading classes. Is Lily keeping up at school, or Jackson and Oliver are taking piano and tennis lessons? What activities can you afford for Lily? What hurt most was how quickly they seemed to forget that I had been there for them during the recession of 2008 when Dad lost his job. I had just started my career, but sent them money every month to help with their mortgage. Stephanie, already working at a high-paying marketing firm, had refused, saying she was saving for her future. Yet this detail conveniently disappeared from family lore. The Christmas before last, I noticed I was seated at the kids' table, while Stephanie and Bradley got the places of honor next to my parents. When I mentioned it to Mom, she laughed it off. "Oh, Rachel, don't be so sensitive. We just thought you'd want to help Lily with her food." But I saw the pattern forming. Despite these slights, I still believed in the importance of family. I called weekly, sent thoughtful birthday gifts, and made sure Lily knew her grandparents and cousins. I held on to the hope that once the novelty of Stephanie's perfect family wore off, things would balance out again. I couldn't have been more wrong. Last December started with such promise. Lily had made handmade gifts for everyone in the family. She spent weeks creating personalized picture frames for her grandparents, painted rocks for her cousins, and a knitted scarf for my sister, with some help from our elderly neighbor who taught her. I'd splurged on gifts too, wanting to make the holiday special after a particularly tough year. We packed our car on December 23rd, planning to arrive at my parents' house in time for Christmas Eve dinner. The weather forecast predicted snow, so we left early. Lily was bouncing with excitement in the back seat, watching holiday movies on her tablet and asking every 30 minutes if we were there yet. We were about 2 hours into our journey when my phone dinged with a text from Stephanie. I asked Lily to read it to me since I was driving. Aunt Stephanie says, "Sorry, but there's no room for you and Lily this year. Mom and Dad agreed to host Emma's family since they're going through a tough time. Maybe you can visit after New Year's instead?" Lily read, her voice trailing off in confusion. "Mom, what does that mean? Aren't we going to Grandma and Grandpa's house?" My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Emma was Stephanie's college roommate, someone she hadn't even mentioned in years. And no room? My parents' house had 4 bedrooms and a finished basement. We always made it work, even when the house was full of relatives. I pulled over at a rest stop and called my mother, hoping there had been some misunderstanding. She answered on the 5th ring, Christmas music and laughter audible in the background. "Mom, I just got a text from Stephanie saying we shouldn't come for Christmas. What's going on?" There was a pause, then some muffled conversation as if she was covering the phone. "Oh, Rachel," she finally said, her voice unnaturally high. "I thought Stephanie had told you weeks ago. Emma's husband lost his job, and they needed somewhere to go for the holidays. They have 3 kids, you know, and Bradley is considering a business partnership with Emma's husband when he gets back on his feet." "So you uninvited your own daughter and granddaughter for Christmas?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice level with Lily watching me from the back seat. "Don't be dramatic, Rachel. It's just one Christmas. You and Lily can have a nice quiet holiday at home. We'll see you after New Year's." "Mom, we're already on the road. We've been planning this for months. Lily has been counting down the days." "Well, I don't know what to tell you. We simply don't have the space this year. Maybe you can find a hotel nearby?" I ended the call and sat in stunned silence. Lily asked in a small voice, "Are we not going to see Grandma and Grandpa?" After a moment of consideration, I made a decision. "We're still going, sweetie. There's been a misunderstanding, and we need to sort it out in person." The next 4 hours were tense. Snow started falling heavily, making the drive slower and more dangerous. I called my father twice, but he didn't pick up. I left messages explaining we were on our way and expected an explanation. By the time we pulled into my parents' driveway, it was dark, and I was exhausted and furious. The house was lit up with Christmas lights, and I could see through the windows that it was full of people. Lily and I trudged through the fresh snow to the front door, our arms loaded with carefully wrapped gifts. I rang the doorbell, and my father answered, his smile faltering when he saw us. "Rachel, Lily, we weren't expecting you," he said awkwardly, not opening the door wider. "Clearly," I replied. "Can we come in? It's freezing out here." He glanced behind him nervously. "Well, we're just sitting down to dinner. Maybe you could come back tomorrow." Before I could respond, Lily darted past him into the warmth of the house. I followed quickly, not giving him a chance to stop me. In the living room, I saw my mother arranging plates at a beautifully set dining table. My sister sat next to a woman I vaguely recognized as Emma, both of them laughing about something. 3 unfamiliar children played with Jackson and Oliver under the Christmas tree. The room fell silent when they noticed us. Lily ran to her cousins, oblivious to the tension, but they looked at their mother uncertainly. "Rachel," my mother said, recovering first. "This is a surprise." "Is it? I told you we were on our way." I set down our bags of gifts. Lily and I drove 6 hours through a snowstorm to get here. Stephanie stood up, smoothing her expensive sweater. "Rachel, I texted you. We explained the situation." "You texted me when we were already on the road," I said. "After we'd been planning this visit for months, after Lily made handmade gifts for everyone." Emma looked uncomfortable. "I'm sorry. I didn't realize we were displacing anyone. Stephanie said you had other plans this year." I stared at my sister, who had the decency to flush. "That's not true. We've never missed a family Christmas. My mother stepped between us. Rachel, please don't make a scene. Emma's family is going through a difficult time. And what about us? I asked. Did it occur to anyone that turning away your daughter and granddaughter on Christmas Eve might be hurtful? It's just one Christmas. My father repeated my mother's earlier words. We'll make it up to you. I looked around the room at the strangers occupying what should have been our places, at my parents' embarrassed but unmovable expressions, at Stephanie's barely concealed impatience. Only Lily and her cousins, now showing each other their toys, seemed unaffected by the adult drama. Lily, I called softly, we need to go find a hotel. Her face fell. But we just got here. I want to show Jackson and Oliver my presents for them. I'm sorry, sweetie. We can't stay. My mother at least had the grace to look guilty. You could leave Lily here with us if you want. There's room for her to sleep with the other children. The suggestion that they would separate me from my daughter was the final straw. Absolutely not. Come on, Lily. As we gathered our things, I overheard Stephanie muttering to Emma, "She's always been dramatic. Single motherhood has made her even more needy." We left without another word, Lily crying quietly in the back seat as we drove through the worsening snowstorm in search of a hotel. It took 3 tries to find one with vacancies on Christmas Eve. As I tucked Lily into the unfamiliar bed later that night, she asked the question that broke my heart. "Mommy, what did we do wrong?" I held her close, fighting back my own tears. "Nothing, baby. Nothing at all." Christmas morning in a budget hotel wasn't what either of us had planned. I woke early and slipped out to the lobby, where I begged the receptionist to help me find somewhere anywhere that might be open, so I could buy something for Lily. The kind woman directed me to a convenience store a few blocks away, where I purchased candy, a magazine with a toy attached, and a stuffed penguin that was discounted because its hat was missing. When Lily woke, I had arranged these meager offerings on the desk with as much festive flair as I could manage. Her brave smile as she pretended excitement over gas station presents nearly broke me. We ordered room service breakfast, watched holiday movies on the small TV, and made the best of it. But the hurt lingered in her quiet moments, in the way she kept checking my phone to see if her grandparents or cousins had called. They hadn't. The only message was a generic text from my mother late Christmas Day. "Sorry things didn't work out. Hope you had a nice Christmas anyway." The boys loved their rocks. We drove home the next day in silence. Lily fell asleep almost immediately, emotionally exhausted from the disappointment. I spent the 6-hour drive replaying years of family dynamics in my head, seeing patterns I had previously excused or ignored. The gradual distancing, the constant comparisons, the way Stephanie's needs always came first. Back in Boston, I made a decision. I would stop trying so hard. For years, I had been the one maintaining our family relationships, calling weekly, sending photos of Lily, making the long drive for visits. It had become clear that my efforts weren't valued or reciprocated. January arrived with its gray skies and post-holiday emptiness. I threw myself into work, taking on extra cases to both distract myself and build up my savings. With Lily in school during the day, I had more time to focus on my career. A senior partner noticed my increased commitment and began mentoring me, seeing potential he said had always been there. For Lily, the rejection had left confusion and questions I struggled to answer honestly without demonizing her grandparents. "Why don't Grandma and Grandpa call anymore?" she would ask. "Are they mad at us?" I enrolled us both in therapy. My sessions helped me process the anger and hurt, while Lily's play therapy gave her space to work through her feelings. Her therapist suggested we focus on building our own traditions and support network. Taking this advice to heart, I reconnected with old friends I'd neglected while prioritizing family visits. Jessica, my college roommate who lived across town, became a regular presence in our lives. Her 2 children were close to Lily's age, and weekend playdates became our new normal. We joined a single parents group that organized activities for kids and support meetings for adults. By February, we had established new routines. Sunday dinners with Jessica's family, movie nights with other single-parent friends, a standing playdate at the local indoor playground where Lily was making new friends. Our apartment, once just a place to sleep between visits to Connecticut, became a true home, filled with laughter and new memories. My parents called occasionally, always with the same superficial cheer as if nothing had happened. They asked about Lily, but never acknowledged the Christmas rejection. My mother mentioned coming to visit sometime soon, but never set a date. Stephanie didn't call at all. I established boundaries I should have set years ago. I stopped accepting guilt trips. I declined invitations that didn't consider Lily's schedule or interests. I no longer dropped everything when my parents needed tech support or when Stephanie wanted advice about a minor problem. Most importantly, I started being honest with Lily about family dynamics in age-appropriate ways. Sometimes adults make mistakes, I explained. And sometimes people can love each other, but still not be kind to each other. We can love Grandma and Grandpa from a distance until they learn to respect our feelings. My therapist helped me see that my divorce had made me cling tighter to my remaining family connections, accepting mistreatment I wouldn't have tolerated from friends. As I built a chosen family of supportive friends, I found myself healing in ways I hadn't expected. By March, Lily and I had found a new normal. Our weekends were filled with activities we chose, not obligations to people who didn't appreciate us. My career was thriving. I was being considered for a junior partnership, years ahead of schedule. Most importantly, Lily was smiling again, no longer asking when we would visit grandparents who had made it clear we weren't a priority. I thought we had moved on. But families have a way of resurfacing just when you've found your balance without them. If you've been building your own support system after family let you down, drop a heart in the comments. It takes courage to create boundaries, but sometimes it's the only way forward. Now, let's see what my family had the audacity to do next. It was a rainy Tuesday in March when my father's name appeared on my phone screen. I hesitated before answering, steeling myself for another surface-level conversation where we pretended everything was fine. "Rachel? Thank God you picked up." His voice was strained in a way I hadn't heard before. "Dad? What's wrong?" "It's the house. There's been a flood, a pipe burst in the upstairs bathroom while we were out, and water's been running for hours. The whole house is damaged. The insurance company says it could take months to repair everything." I sat down at my kitchen table, professional instincts kicking in despite myself. "Have you documented everything? Taken photos? Called a water damage specialist?" Yes, we've done all that. But Rachel." He paused. "We need a place to stay. The insurance will cover a hotel for 2 weeks, but after that," the unspoken request hung in the air. I waited, making him actually ask. "We were hoping we could stay with you and Lily. Just until the repairs are done." 3 months of minimal contact, no acknowledgement of the Christmas incident, and now this. I closed my eyes, thinking of the cramped second bedroom in our apartment that served as both Lily's room and my home office. What about Stephanie? Her house is closer, and she has more space. The words came out more sharply than I intended. My father sighed. "We asked her first, actually. She says they can't possibly take us in right now. Bradley's under stress at work, and the boys need consistency, and—" He trailed off, perhaps realizing how it sounded to admit they had come to me as a second choice. "I see," I said, my voice carefully neutral. "So Stephanie said no, and now you're asking me." "Rachel, please. Your mother is devastated about the house. All those family photos, the furniture from your grandmother. Much of it is ruined. We're not asking for much, just a temporary place to sleep." I told him I needed to think about it and talk to Lily. After hanging up, I sat at my kitchen table for a long time, emotions warring inside me. Part of me wanted to say no immediately, to let them experience the rejection they had so casually inflicted on us. Another part, the daughter who still sought approval despite everything, wanted to prove I was better than them, more generous, more family-oriented. When Lily came home from school, I sat her down and carefully explained the situation. Grandma and Grandpa's house had a big water problem. They might need a place to stay for a while. How would you feel if they stayed with us? Her reaction surprised me. Instead of excitement at seeing grandparents who had been distant for months, she looked worried. "Will I have to give up my room? Where will I do my homework? The practical concerns of a 7-year-old cut through my emotional turmoil. I reassured her we would figure out the logistics if I decided to say yes. That evening, my phone rang again. This time it was Stephanie, her voice tight with the forced patience she used when trying to manage a situation. Rachel, Dad told me you haven't given them an answer yet. I'm still thinking about it. It's a big ask, Stephanie. My apartment is small, and I work from home 3 days a week. They're our parents, she said, as if that settled everything. They need help. I'm aware of that. I'm just wondering why they can't stay with you. Your house has 6 bedrooms. She sighed dramatically. I told them. And I'm telling you, it's just not possible right now. Emma and her family are coming to stay with us for spring break next week. Bradley's hoping to finalize this business deal with Emma's husband, and it's a critical time. We need to focus on making that happen. The mention of Emma, the same college roommate whose family had displaced us at Christmas, made my blood boil. So once again, Emma's family takes priority over your own sister. Don't be ridiculous. This is business, Rachel. Bradley's been working on this deal for months. It could mean a huge promotion for him. And my work doesn't matter? My space doesn't matter? Lily's routine doesn't matter? You have a 2-bedroom apartment. Surely you can make space for our parents for a few weeks. It's not like you entertain much anyway. The casual dismissal of my life stung. After hanging up on Stephanie, I did something I hadn't considered before. I called my father's insurance company. As a real estate attorney specializing in property disputes, I had contacts in most major insurance providers. Within an hour, I had the full picture, and it wasn't what my parents had described. The damage was indeed extensive, but there were complications they hadn't mentioned. The insurance adjuster suspected the pipe had been leaking slowly for months before the major break. There were signs of previous water damage that had been painted over rather than properly repaired. The policy would cover emergency accommodations for the full repair period, but my parents had opted for the minimum coverage to save on premiums. Most significantly, I discovered they had taken out a second mortgage on the house 2 years ago, a substantial one that had reduced their equity to almost nothing. If repairs exceeded certain thresholds, they might be underwater on the property. This wasn't just about needing a place to stay for a few weeks. This was a financial crisis they were hiding. I called my father back. Dad, why didn't you tell me about the second mortgage? The long silence confirmed my suspicion. How did you find out about that? He finally asked. I'm a real estate attorney, Dad. I have resources. I kept my voice level. What's going on? The truth this time. Over the next half hour, the real story emerged. My parents had remortgaged their nearly paid-off home to invest in one of Bradley's business ventures. They had been struggling financially for years, but hiding it from me, while maintaining the image of prosperity. Stephanie and Bradley had encouraged the investment, promising returns that never materialized. Now, with the house damaged and their finances stretched thin, they were facing potential foreclosure if the insurance claim didn't cover enough of the repairs. Stephanie knew all of this, but had apparently decided it wasn't her problem to solve. As I hung up the phone, Jessica's words from our last conversation echoed in my head. Families only tell you what they want you to know. It's the secrets that reveal the true dynamics. I had a decision to make, one that would reshape our family forever. Have you ever discovered your family was hiding major secrets from you? I never expected my parents would remortgage their home for my sister's husband while shutting me out of their lives. Drop a comment if you've had a moment of realization that changed how you saw your family. The real drama is just beginning, so stay with me to see what happened next. That night, after Lily went to bed, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, watching the city lights and thinking about family obligations. The practical part of me, the attorney who dealt with property disputes, daily assessed the situation clinically. My parents had made poor financial decisions. They had options they hadn't explored. Their insurance coverage, while minimal, could be leveraged better with the right advocacy. But the daughter in me remembered my father teaching me to ride a bike, my mother staying up all night when I had chicken pox. Despite everything, they were still my parents. I called my therapist the next morning and scheduled an emergency session. Dr. Marshall had been helping me work through family issues for months, and I trusted her perspective. It sounds like you're feeling pulled between your sense of obligation and your need for healthy boundaries, she observed after I explained the situation. Exactly, I agreed. Part of me wants to help them because they're my parents and they're in trouble. But another part feels like this is just another example of them taking me for granted while prioritizing Stephanie. We discussed options for over an hour. By the end, I had clarity. I could help my parents without sacrificing my boundaries or Lily's well-being. That afternoon, I met with Jessica for coffee. As my closest friend and a financial advisor, she offered both emotional support and practical advice. You know what bothers me most? I said, stirring my latte absently. It's not just that they expect me to bail them out after excluding us at Christmas. It's that they've been making these huge financial decisions, remortgaging their home, investing in Bradley's business while keeping me completely in the dark. Then they present me with the fallout and expect me to fix it. Jessica nodded. Classic family dynamics. The responsible one gets taken advantage of because everyone knows they'll step up. Not this time, I said firmly. I'll help them, but on my terms. I spent the next few days researching my parents' situation thoroughly. I contacted colleagues who specialized in insurance claims and got their professional opinions. I reviewed the housing market in my parents' area and calculated what their home would be worth after repairs. I even quietly investigated Bradley's business ventures, confirming my suspicion that my parents' investment was likely lost. Most disturbingly, I discovered through a former classmate who worked at Stephanie's company that she had been laid off 3 months ago, but was keeping up appearances while desperately searching for a new job. The perfect life she projected was crumbling, yet she continued to look down on me and my stable, if modest, existence. Armed with information, I drafted a formal lease agreement for my parents. It specified a maximum stay of 3 months, detailed expectations for shared expenses, and outlined house rules that respected Lily's routines and my work schedule. I included a clause requiring family therapy sessions twice monthly while they lived with us. Before presenting this to my parents, I needed to prepare my home and my daughter. I rearranged my apartment, converting half of the living room into a workspace so Lily could keep her bedroom. I invested in a comfortable sofa bed and privacy screens to create a sleeping area for my parents in the living room. It wasn't ideal, but it was the best solution given our limited space. With Lily, I was completely honest. Grandma and Grandpa are having a hard time right now, and they need our help. They'll be staying with us for a while. But this is still your home, and your feelings matter. If anything makes you uncomfortable, you can always tell me. She considered this seriously. Will they be nice to us this time? The question broke my heart. They should be, and if they're not, we'll deal with it together. With my home and daughter prepared, I drove to Connecticut to meet my parents in person. I found them staying at a budget motel near their damaged house, looking tired and older than I remembered. I took them to a nearby restaurant for lunch, where I laid out my offer and its conditions. I've prepared my home for you to stay with us temporarily. I've drawn up a lease agreement that outlines expectations. This includes contributing to groceries and utilities, respecting my work schedule and Lily's routine, and attending family therapy sessions with me. My mother looked shocked. A lease agreement? We're family, Rachel, not tenants. Yes, we're family. Family who didn't have room for me and my daughter at Christmas but now needs my help. I kept my voice calm. These are my terms. My father reviewed the document, his expression grim. Family therapy? Is that really necessary? Absolutely. I met his gaze steadily. We have issues that need addressing if you're going to live in my home. This isn't just about giving you a place to stay, it's about rebuilding our relationship. They exchanged looks, communicating silently in that way. Long-married couples do. And what about the insurance? My father finally asked. We're struggling to get them to cover everything. I've reviewed your policy and spoken with colleagues who specialize in these cases. I believe we can get better coverage than what they're offering initially. I'm willing to help with that too, but only if you agree to all my terms. After some negotiation and clarification, they reluctantly signed the agreement. As we finalized the details, I mentioned that I'd be willing to drive them to Boston the following weekend. Actually, my mother said, looking embarrassed, we have more belongings than will fit in your car. We need to bring quite a bit with us. For a temporary stay? I raised an eyebrow. Well, we don't know how long the repairs will take, my father hedged. The agreement says 3 months maximum, I reminded them. After that, we'll reassess if necessary. On the drive back to Boston, I called Stephanie to inform her that our parents would be staying with me. Her relief was palpable. That's great, Rachel. I knew you'd come through. They'll be more comfortable with you anyway. My guest rooms are being renovated. The lie was so transparent I almost laughed. Interesting. That's not what Dad told me. He said you couldn't take them because Emma's family is visiting for spring break. Well, yes, that too, she backpedaled. It's complicated. It always is with you, Stephanie. I changed the subject. By the way, how is Bradley's business going? I heard there might be some issues. The subtle shift in her breathing told me I'd hit a nerve. Everything's fine. Bradley's business is doing very well. Good to hear. And you're still at Palmer Marketing, right? I ran into Sarah Chen last week, and she mentioned some changes there. The silence stretched for several seconds. I need to go, Stephanie finally said. The boys need help with homework. I hung up, suspicions confirmed. My sister's perfect life was a facade, yet she continued to judge mine while hiding her own struggles. It wasn't just my parents who had been keeping secrets. The next weekend, my parents arrived with far more belongings than expected for a temporary stay. As we unloaded boxes and suitcases into my apartment, I noticed my mother trying to rearrange my furniture and kitchen items. Mom, I said firmly, remember our agreement. This is my home. Your guests here. She looked startled, then nodded reluctantly. My father, watching the exchange, seemed to realize for the first time that things would be different here. In my home, I set the rules. That night after they went to bed, I sat in my newly arranged workspace, reviewing the family therapy appointment I'd scheduled for the following week. My parents might think they were just weathering a temporary crisis, but I knew this arrangement would change our family dynamic forever. And for the first time in years, I was the one in control. My parents arrived on a Sunday afternoon with 3 suitcases each, boxes of personal items, and an attitude that suggested they were doing me a favor by gracing my home with their presence. My mother immediately began critiquing my apartment. The decor was too modern, the kitchen inefficiently arranged, the neighborhood not as nice as Stephanie's. I bit my tongue, reminding myself of the boundaries I'd established. Mom, Dad, let me show you where you'll be staying. I led them to the partitioned area of the living room where I'd set up the sofa bed and storage space. I know it's not ideal, but it's the best I can offer. My father's face fell. We thought we'd be in Lily's room. She could sleep with you. That's not happening, I said firmly. Lily keeps her room. This was all in the agreement you signed, my mother sniffed. Well, I suppose we'll make do. Temporarily. Lily came home from her play date with Jessica's kids and approached her grandparents cautiously. Their enthusiastic greeting seemed to surprise her. They hadn't shown this much interest in her for years. She accepted their hugs politely, but stayed close to me, a silent statement of where her trust lay. The first few days were awkward, but manageable. My parents tried to respect the rules I'd established, though my mother couldn't help reorganizing my kitchen when I was at work. I chose not to confront her about it. Some battles weren't worth fighting. The real conflicts emerged around household routines. My parents went to bed early and woke at dawn, while Lily and I were night owls. They watched television at high volume, complained about my vegetarian meals twice a week, and seemed puzzled by my work-from-home schedule. "Can't you take those calls somewhere else?" my father asked during an important client conference call. "We were planning to watch a movie. This is my office space now, Dad. As we discussed, you're welcome to use headphones or watch in the evening when I'm done working." Our first family therapy session arrived none too soon. Dr. Phillips, a family systems specialist, welcomed us to her cozy office with professional warmth. "I understand you're all living together temporarily due to some property damage," she began. "How's that arrangement working for everyone?" My father spoke first. "It's a bit cramped, but we're grateful Rachel could take us in. His tone suggested he was saying what he thought the therapist wanted to hear. And Rachel, how are you finding the arrangement? I chose my words carefully. It's been an adjustment. I think we're all still finding our rhythm. Dr. Phillips nodded. That's natural. New living arrangements always require adaptation. She turned to my mother. Catherine, what's been most challenging for you? My mother hesitated. I suppose. Feeling like a guest rather than family. There are so many rules. Boundaries, I corrected gently. They're boundaries, not rules. What's the difference? My father asked, genuinely confused. Dr. Phillips explained the distinction, and I watched my parents' faces as understanding slowly dawned. They had never considered that their daughter might need or deserve boundaries. In their world, family meant unlimited access and obligation. The session continued with Dr. Phillips skillfully guiding us through discussions about respect, privacy, and expectations. My parents seemed surprised by my articulate description of our family dynamic. Perhaps they'd never realized I had been observing and analyzing it for years. What about Christmas? Dr. Phillips asked, addressing the elephant in the room. Rachel mentioned there was a significant incident. My parents exchanged uncomfortable glances. It was a miscommunication, my mother offered weakly. Was it? I asked. Because it felt like a deliberate exclusion. We had limited space, my father insisted. Stephanie's friend needed somewhere to stay. And I didn't? Lily didn't? Your own daughter and granddaughter? The silence that followed spoke volumes. Dr. Phillips noted it with a slight nod. I think we've touched on something important here. Let's explore this more in our next session. As we left therapy, my father commented, I don't see how dredging up old hurts helps anything. We should focus on moving forward. The past affects the present, Dad. We can't move forward without acknowledging what happened. At home, my parents retreated to their partitioned space, whispering together in a way that reminded me of childhood, when they would discuss adult matters they thought I couldn't understand. The pattern of forced politeness, punctuated by small conflicts, continued for weeks. My parents made minimal efforts to integrate into our routines, but clearly viewed their stay as a temporary inconvenience. They spent hours on the phone with Stephanie, speaking in hushed tones that fell silent when I entered the room. Stephanie herself rarely visited, always citing busy schedules or the boys' activities. When she did come by, she acted like a beneficent queen visiting peasants, bringing lavish gifts for Lily while making backhanded comments about my apartment. It's cozy, isn't it? She remarked during one visit. I don't know how you manage in such a small space. We manage just fine, I replied. Not everyone needs 5 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. Of course not, she agreed with false sympathy. You do what you can with what you have. Meanwhile, I was helping my parents navigate their insurance claim, leveraging my professional knowledge and contacts to push for better coverage. The process revealed more about their financial situation than they had voluntarily shared. They were deeply in debt, not just from the second mortgage, but from credit cards and personal loans as well. Why didn't you tell me things were this bad? I asked my father one evening while reviewing their finances. We didn't want to worry you, he said, not meeting my eyes. That's not it. You didn't want me to know you've been supporting Stephanie and Bradley while telling me you couldn't help with Lily's summer camp fees last year. He had the grace to look ashamed. Bradley's business needed investors. It was a family opportunity. I'm family too, Dad. As the weeks passed, something unexpected began to happen. My parents, living in my home, witnessing my daily life, started to see me differently. They watched me balance single parenthood with a demanding career. They saw my relationship with Lily, respectful, loving, built on honesty rather than authority. They observed my network of supportive friends and colleagues who valued my expertise and judgment. You're really good at your job, my father commented after overhearing a particularly challenging negotiation call. I knew you were a lawyer, but I guess I never really understood what that meant. My mother, helping Lily with homework one afternoon, remarked, She's so well-adjusted and polite. You've done a wonderful job with her, Rachel. These small acknowledgments meant more than they knew. For years, I'd craved their approval, their recognition that my path, though different from Stephanie's, was valid and successful in its own way. The dynamic with Lily shifted too. Initially wary of the grandparents who had rejected us, she gradually warmed to them as they showed genuine interest in her life. My mother taught her to bake cookies. My father helped with her science project. They attended her school play, cheering as enthusiastically as any grandparents there. One evening, about 6 weeks into their stay, I overheard my mother on the phone with Stephanie. "No, we can't come this weekend. Lily has a soccer game, and we promised to be there." The casual way she prioritized her granddaughter over Stephanie's invitation was a small but significant shift. The insurance process was moving forward, though more slowly than my parents had hoped. Their house would need extensive repairs, including treatment for previously hidden mold issues. The timeline stretched from weeks to months. "I don't know how to thank you," my father said one evening as we reviewed the latest estimate. "Without your help, we might have lost the house entirely." I accepted his gratitude with a nod, remembering all the times I'd needed their help and been told to handle it myself because that's what adults do. Just as things seemed to be improving, I returned home early one day to find my parents huddled over my laptop, looking at something with intense concentration. When they noticed me, they quickly closed the screen, guilt written clearly on their faces. "What are you doing?" I asked, setting down my briefcase. "Nothing," my mother said too quickly. "Just checking email." "On my computer? Without permission?" My father cleared his throat. "We were actually looking at houses for sale in Boston. We've been thinking, maybe it's time to consider moving closer to you and Lily." The idea was so unexpected I didn't know how to respond. Part of me was touched they wanted to be near us. Another part suspected this was more about their financial problems than any desire for family closeness. "That's something to think about," I said carefully. "But right now, let's focus on getting your current house repaired." That night, lying in bed, I reflected on how much had changed in a few months. My parents were seeing me as a competent adult for perhaps the first time. Our relationship, while still complicated, had evolved beyond the parent-child dynamic that had trapped us for decades. But something still didn't feel right. There were too many whispered phone calls, too many evasive answers about Bradley's business and Stephanie's situation. I couldn't shake the feeling that I still didn't have the full picture, that somewhere beneath the surface of our improving relationship, secrets remained. Little did I know, the biggest revelation was yet to come. The discovery happened by accident. My parents had gone to Connecticut for the day to meet with contractors about their house repairs. Lily was at school. I was working from home, finishing a brief for an upcoming case. When my printer ran out of paper, I remembered seeing a ream in the closet where my parents were storing some of their belongings. I hadn't meant to snoop, I was simply looking for paper, but when I moved a folder to reach the supplies, several sheets fell out. My first instinct was to gather them without looking, but a familiar name caught my eye. Emma Watson, Stephanie's college roommate, whose family had displaced us at Christmas. Curious, despite myself, I glanced at the document. It was an email chain, printed out and saved. The oldest message was from Stephanie to my parents, dated December 1st of last year. "Mom and Dad, Emma and her family are looking for somewhere to stay over Christmas. Her husband Richard might be exactly the connection Bradley needs right now. Having them stay with us would be perfect for networking, but our house will be under renovation. Could they stay with you instead? We'll all come too, of course." My mother had replied, "Of course they can stay. We'll make room." Then Stephanie again. "What about Rachel and Lily? They always come for Christmas." My father's response made my blood run cold. "We'll tell Rachel plans have changed this year. She'll understand. It's just one Christmas, and this could be important for Bradley's business." But it was Stephanie's final email that truly stunned me. "Actually, it might be better if Rachel doesn't come at all. Single motherhood isn't the image we want to project to Richard's family." Emma mentioned they're very traditional, and having a divorced sister might bring down the tone. "Let's just tell her there's no room." My mother had agreed. "You're right, it would be awkward. Rachel's life choices are her business, but they do reflect on the family. I'll let her know there's no space this year." I sat on the floor of the closet, the papers trembling in my hands. They had deliberately excluded us, not because of space constraints, but because I was divorced. Because my existence as a single mother might bring down the tone for people they were trying to impress. And my parents had agreed. My own parents had decided my status as a divorced woman made me unsuitable for family Christmas. I don't know how long I sat there, but eventually I gathered the papers, made copies, and carefully returned the originals exactly as I'd found them. Then I called Jessica. "I need you to take Lily after school today," I told her, my voice steadier than I felt. "There's going to be a family discussion she doesn't need to witness." Jessica, understanding the gravity in my tone, agreed without questions. I spent the hours until my parents' return preparing myself, reviewing the evidence, and thinking about what I wanted to say. This wasn't just about Christmas anymore. It was about years of subtle and not so subtle messages that I was less valuable than my sister, that my life choices made me an embarrassment, that my success didn't count because it didn't fit their narrow definition. When my parents arrived home, I was sitting at the kitchen table with copies of the emails laid out in front of me. Their faces fell the moment they saw the papers. "Where did you get those?" my mother asked, her voice barely audible. "Does it matter? What matters is what they say." I looked between them. "You excluded us from Christmas because I'm divorced. Because my existence might embarrass you in front of strangers." My father started to speak, but I held up a hand. "Don't. Don't try to explain this away or minimize it. For once in my life, I want the truth." The silence stretched between us until my mother finally spoke. "It wasn't just about you being divorced. It was about appearances. Richard Barton is from an influential family. The connection could have meant everything for Bradley's business. We were trying to help Stephanie. By throwing me and your granddaughter away for Christmas? By letting us drive 6 hours through a snowstorm only to be turned away at the door? You've always been so strong, so independent," my father said. "Stephanie needs more support. She always has." "That's not an answer. That's an excuse." I pushed the papers toward them. "Read these again. Read what you wrote about my life choices, reflecting poorly on the family. Read how easily you discarded us for people you'd never even met." As they reluctantly reviewed their own words, I added, "And now you're living in my home, eating food I buy, sleeping under my roof, using my expertise to save your house. Does the irony escape you?" Before they could respond, the front door opened. Stephanie walked in without knocking, a habit she'd developed since our parents moved in. "Mom? Dad? I need to talk to you about." She stopped short when she saw the papers on the table, the expressions on our faces. "What's going on?" I turned to her. "Perfect timing, Stephanie. We were just discussing these." I held up the emails. "Care to explain why you told our parents to exclude me from Christmas because being divorced would bring down the tone?" Her face paled. "You weren't supposed to see those." "Clearly. Just like I wasn't supposed to know about Mom and Dad remortgaging their house to invest in Bradley's business, or that you've been laid off for months, or that Bradley's business is failing." The shocked expression on my parents' faces confirmed they hadn't known about Stephanie's job loss either. "You're laid off?" my mother asked. "Since when?" Stephanie's composure cracked. "Since November. I've been interviewing, but nothing's worked out yet. We didn't want to worry you." "And Bradley's business?" my father pressed, his voice tight. She looked down. "It's not good. The Barton investment fell through. We've been trying to find new investors, but..." She trailed off, then looked at me accusingly. "How did you find out about all this?" "I'm an attorney. I have resources and connections, and unlike some people, I don't base my relationships on lies." The tension in the room was palpable. My mother started crying softly, while my father just looked defeated. Stephanie stood rigid, her perfect facade crumbling visibly. I hadn't planned what happened next, but I found myself calling Dr. Phillips and explaining the situation. To my surprise, she offered to see us immediately for an emergency session. An hour later, we were all sitting in her office, my parents, Stephanie, and me. "I understand there's been a significant revelation today," Dr. Phillips began. "Rachel has discovered some information that has deeply hurt her." Stephanie interrupted. "It's being taken out of context. We were trying to help Bradley's business. It wasn't personal." "It wasn't personal?" I repeated incredulously. You literally said my divorce made me unsuitable to attend family Christmas. How is that not personal? Dr. Phillips intervened. Let's each person speak without interruption. Rachel, continue, please. I took a deep breath. My whole life, I've been the responsible one. I helped my parents financially during the recession. I built a successful career while raising a daughter alone. I've made holidays and birthdays special despite limited resources. And my reward was to be cast aside when a better opportunity came along, when my existence became inconvenient to Stephanie's social climbing. My parents looked ashamed, but Stephanie bristled. You always do this, play the victim while acting superior. You have no idea what my life is like. The pressure to maintain appearances, to succeed. Pressure you put on yourself. No one forced you to pretend everything was perfect while lying to everyone. Dr. Phillips guided the conversation, allowing each of us to express our feelings while keeping the interaction from spiraling into chaos. Gradually, years of resentment, jealousy, and misunderstandings surfaced. Stephanie admitted she'd always been jealous of my independence and intelligence. Everything comes so easily to you, she said. You don't need anyone's approval. You never have. I laughed bitterly. Are you kidding? I've spent my entire adult life trying to earn your approval, all of you. I just finally realized it was never going to happen, so I built a life that didn't depend on it. My parents acknowledged their favoritism, with my father admitting, Stephanie always seemed to need us more. You were so capable, Rachel. We thought you were fine. I needed you too, I said quietly. I just stopped asking, because the answer was always no. As the session continued, more truths emerged. Stephanie's perfect marriage had been troubled for years, with Bradley's financial schemes creating constant stress. My parents had remortgaged their home against their better judgment because they couldn't say no to Stephanie. The Christmas exclusion had been just one instance in a pattern of choices that prioritized appearances over authentic relationships. We were heading toward an uneasy resolution when the office door burst open. Bradley stood there, red-faced and angry. Stephanie, what the hell? I've been calling you for hours. Stephanie looked startled. Bradley, how did you find me? Your phone location. We need to talk. Now. He glanced around the room dismissively. Family therapy? Seriously? We have real problems to deal with. Dr. Phillips stood. Sir, this is a private session. I must ask you to wait outside. Bradley ignored her. The bank called. It's over, Steph. They're foreclosing on the house. We have 30 days. The room fell silent. Stephanie looked like she might faint. That's not possible. You said we had more time. Well, we don't. He turned to my parents. And the money you invested? It's gone. All of it. I tried, but the market turned against us. He said this without a hint of remorse, as if reporting a minor inconvenience. My father's face drained of color. All of it? The entire second mortgage? Bradley shrugged. Business is risky. You knew that when you invested. I stood up, furious on my parents' behalf, despite everything. They didn't invest, Bradley. They put their home at risk because Stephanie pressured them. And now you're acting like it's just an unfortunate business outcome? He looked at me, as if noticing me for the first time. Oh great, the righteous sister act. This doesn't concern you, Rachel. Actually it does. They're living in my home because of your business acumen. And now you're telling them their money is gone and you're losing your house? This absolutely concerns me. The confrontation that followed was ugly. Years of pretense stripped away, revealing the truth of everyone's circumstances. Bradley's business had never been successful, just a series of increasingly desperate schemes funded by family, money, and connections. Stephanie had maintained the illusion of success while their financial reality crumbled. My parents had enabled them at every turn, mortgaging their future for Stephanie's fantasy life. By the time we left Dr. Phillips' office, everything had changed. Bradley stormed off alone, refusing to participate further. Stephanie was a shell of her former confident self, facing the reality of her choices. My parents looked decades older, the weight of their decisions evident in their slumped shoulders. In the parking lot, Stephanie approached me hesitantly. Rachel, I know I have no right to ask, but do you think, could the boys and I stay with you too? Just until we figure things out? I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw not the polished, perfect woman who had judged me for years, but someone broken by her own impossible standards. In that moment, I felt no satisfaction in her downfall, only sadness for the relationship we might have had. We'll talk about it later, I said. Right now, I need to pick up Lily from Jessica's. As I drove away, I realized that the revenge I had unconsciously wanted for them to recognize their mistreatment of me had arrived, but it brought no joy, only the clarity that comes with finally seeing the truth and the opportunity to build something more authentic from the ruins of what had been. The weeks following our confrontation were both intensely difficult and surprisingly healing. With all secrets exposed and pretenses abandoned, we began the slow process of rebuilding our family relationships on a foundation of truth rather than appearances. My parents' house repairs accelerated once I took a more active role in their insurance claim. Using my professional connections and knowledge of property law, I was able to demonstrate that the insurance company had undervalued significant aspects of the damage. Within 2 weeks, they received a revised settlement that covered most of the necessary repairs. "We can't thank you enough," my father said when the approval came through. "Without your help, we might have lost the house entirely." "I'm glad I could help," I replied, and meant it. Despite everything, I didn't want to see my parents lose their home of 30 years. The question of Stephanie's situation was more complicated. After much consideration and discussion with Lily, I agreed to let my sister and her sons stay with us temporarily, but not Bradley. Their marriage was unraveling rapidly, and his presence would have made an already crowded apartment unbearable. "He's staying with a college friend," Stephanie explained when she arrived with the boys and a fraction of their belongings. "We're taking some time apart." The adjustment to having 5 additional people in my 2-bedroom apartment was challenging. Jackson and Oliver, accustomed to their spacious suburban home with separate bedrooms, now shared the living room floor with air mattresses. Stephanie slept on the couch. My parents remained in their partitioned space. Only Lily maintained her own room, which became a sanctuary for her amid the chaos. Surprisingly, the children adapted more quickly than the adults. Lily, after initial wariness, embraced her role as hostess and guide to her cousins. The boys, removed from the pressure of their parents' expectations, revealed themselves to be ordinary children rather than the prodigies Stephanie had always described. They played together, argued over toys, and gradually developed the cousin relationship they should have had all along. For Stephanie, the experience was humbling. Used to managing her household with a cleaning service, landscapers, and occasional nanny, she now found herself sharing chores in my modestly equipped kitchen. Her designer clothes stayed packed away, replaced by borrowed casual wear more suited to our cramped quarters. "I don't know how you do this," she admitted one night as we washed dishes together. "Work full-time, take care of Lily, maintain your home all by yourself." "You do what you have to do," I replied simply. "And I'm not really by myself. I have friends who help, colleagues who understand when I need flexibility. I built a support system." She nodded thoughtfully. "I never did that. I was so busy maintaining the image that I never developed real friendships. Emma was the closest thing I had to a friend, and even that relationship was mostly about what Bradley and I could gain from it." These moments of authenticity with my sister were new and precious. For the first time since childhood, we were talking without competition or judgment, just 2 women facing challenges, finding common ground. My parents, too, were changing. Freed from the pressure of keeping up appearances, they engaged more genuinely with Lily and showed interest in my work beyond its financial benefits. My mother started joining Lily and me for our Sunday morning bakery ritual. My father offered to review contracts for my smaller clients free of charge, using his accounting background to spot financial issues I might have missed. Our family therapy sessions continued, now including Stephanie and occasionally the children for age-appropriate discussions. Doc Phillips guided us through difficult conversations about favoritism, honesty, and realistic expectations. Progress wasn't linear, we had setbacks and arguments, but the overall trajectory was toward healing. Most significantly, my parents finally acknowledged the pain they had caused by excluding us from Christmas. "We were wrong," my mother said during one session, tears streaming down her face. "We hurt you and Lily for reasons that seem so trivial now. I don't expect you to forgive us right away, but I hope someday you can." Professionally, I continued to thrive. The senior partner who had been mentoring me was impressed by how I balanced family chaos with work responsibilities. When a junior partnership position opened unexpectedly, he recommended me without hesitation. The promotion came with a significant salary increase and the option to move to a larger apartment in the same building, a timely solution to our overcrowded living situation. "I found a 3-bedroom that will be available next month," I told my family over dinner. "It's on the 8th floor, has a better layout, and the building has a small playground." "That sounds wonderful," my mother said. "We're so proud of you, Rachel." Stephanie looked up from helping Oliver with his spaghetti. "Will there be room for all of us?" I met her gaze steadily. "For now, yes. But this isn't a permanent solution, Steph. You need to think about what's next for you and the boys." She nodded, a new determination in her eyes. "I have an interview next week. It's not as prestigious as my last position, but the hours are more flexible, and they have good benefits." By early summer, my parents' house was nearly repaired. They faced difficult financial decisions ahead. The second mortgage still loomed large, even with the insurance settlement, but they were confronting their situation realistically for the first time in years. "We're thinking of downsizing," my father told me one evening. "The house is too big for just us anyway, and a smaller place would be more manageable financially." "That makes sense," I agreed. "I know a great real estate agent in your area who specializes in helping seniors find the right fit." My mother looked thoughtful. "We've been talking about moving closer to Boston, actually. Not right away, but eventually. To be nearer to you and Lily." She hesitated. "If you'd want that, of course." The question touched me deeply. For the first time, they were considering my wishes rather than assuming or imposing their own. "I think we'd like that," I said carefully. "But let's take it one step at a time." Stephanie secured her new job, a marketing position at a smaller firm with a family-friendly culture. The salary was lower than her previous role, but the stability and reduced stress made up for it. She found an affordable 2-bedroom apartment near a good school for the boys and began rebuilding her life with a humility and authenticity I'd never seen in her before. Bradley, meanwhile, faced the consequences of his financial mismanagement. His business officially declared bankruptcy, and he moved to Chicago to work for an uncle's company. He maintained minimal contact with Jackson and Oliver, his initial promises to visit regularly quickly, giving way to occasional video calls. "The boys are better off without his influence," Stephanie confided. "I didn't realize until all this happened how much pressure he put on them to be perfect. They're happier now, just being kids." As December approached, the question of Christmas loomed large. My parents would be back in their repaired home by then. Stephanie would be settled in her apartment. Our living situations had stabilized, but the emotional wounds of the previous Christmas remained tender. During a therapy session in November, Dr. Phillips raised the subject. "The holidays can be challenging after family conflict. Have you discussed your plans?" My parents exchanged glances before my father spoke. "We were hoping to host Christmas at our house again this year, but we understand if Rachel doesn't feel comfortable with that." "Actually," I said, surprising myself, "I was thinking we could do Christmas at my place this year." The words came naturally, without the need for planning. The new apartment has enough space, and it would be a fresh start. A new tradition. The suggestion was met with cautious enthusiasm. My mother offered to help with cooking, my father with decorations. Stephanie asked if she could bring dessert from the bakery near her new apartment. "And I want to invite Jessica and her kids too," I added. "They became our family when we needed one. I'd like them to be included." To my surprise, there were no objections. My mother nodded thoughtfully. "Of course, friends are important. We should have recognized that sooner." As the holiday approached, I watched my family adapt to our new reality with a mix of amazement and cautious hope. My parents, freed from the burden of maintaining false prosperity, seemed more relaxed and authentic. Stephanie, learning to live within her means, focused on experiences with her sons rather than material possessions. The children, oblivious to the adult complexities, simply enjoyed having more time together. Christmas Eve arrived with a light snow falling over Boston. My apartment, now spacious enough to accommodate everyone comfortably, was decorated with a mix of my modern tastes and traditional family ornaments my mother had brought from Connecticut. The scent of roasting turkey and pine needles filled the air. Lily and her cousins played board games while Christmas music played softly in the background. Jessica arrived with her children, bearing homemade cookies and gifts. My parents welcomed them warmly, my mother immediately engaging Jessica's daughter in conversation about her science project. My father helped Jessica's son set up the new electronic game he'd brought. Stephanie came last, looking nervous but determined in a simple sweater rather than her usual designer outfit. "I brought pie," she announced. "I made it myself. It might not be perfect, but it's authentic. Just like our family now," I replied with a smile. We gathered around the table, parents, siblings, children, friends, a patchwork family bonded by both blood and choice. Before we ate, my father raised his glass. "To Rachel," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "who taught us all what family really means. Not perfection or appearances, but acceptance and support when it matters most." The toast brought tears to my eyes. Not because I needed their validation anymore, but because it signified how far we had all come, from rejection to reconciliation, from secrets to honesty, from appearance to substance. Later, after dinner had been eaten and gifts exchanged, I found a quiet moment alone with Lily in the kitchen. "What do you think, sweetheart? Is this a good Christmas?" She considered the question with the seriousness only a 7-year-old can muster. "It's different, but I like it. Grandma seems happier. And the boys are nicer now." She looked up at me. "Are we going to do this every year?" "I don't know," I answered honestly. "But whatever happens, we'll face it together. That's what family really means." As I looked out at our gathered loved ones, imperfect, struggling, but genuinely trying, I realized that the revenge I had unconsciously sought had transformed into something more valuable. Reconciliation on my terms, with boundaries intact and mutual respect established. The Christmas rejection had been painful, but it had catalyzed changes that might otherwise have taken decades or never happened at all. Sometimes, being excluded from the place you thought was yours forces you to build something better, something that truly feels like home. If this family drama resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to rebuild a relationship from scratch after betrayal? Did you find that establishing boundaries actually helped create healthier connections? I'd love to hear your experiences. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more stories about family dynamics, forgiveness, and finding strength in difficult circumstances. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Sometimes our greatest growth comes from our most painful moments, and sharing these stories helps all of us feel less alone. Until next time, remember that you deserve respect and authentic relationships, even, especially, from family.